G'day and welcome back to my workbench. Now, this is where we sort of left things last time. Well, I was starting to put these deadeyes here on the channel board so I could basically tie the whole thing up. In this video, I'm going to show you how I managed to space out those deadeyes and get all my little channel ropes exactly the same length. They will tighten up a bit when I'm finished and I get the correct tension on both sides because I've only just done this as a demo to show you. But that is infinitely better than the plastic part, which we had originally, which is quite horrible. So this video is a follow-on from the last one. If you haven't seen the last video, probably best you go back and watch it. There'll be a card up here on the screen, or there is a link below in the description. For the previous one, that is sort of part A of this, which explains how I did the rigging and the seizing on the rat line, well actually the shroud for the rat lines, which goes down to those deadeyes. So once you're up to speed with that, this video might make more sense. But anyhow, for those of you jumping in, you can probably still enjoy this. Not a problem. And as I said, what I'm going to do is show you my little tool that I made up that allows you to space your deadeyes very easily, and then the whole thing comes together looking nice and even, like mine are. So that's the thing. You don't want them up and down and wiggly and all over the place. Nicely spaced out, or correctly sort of set with parallel lines. That's what you want. That's what you're aiming for. And I will show you how I managed to achieve that. So does it sound interesting? I hope so. All right then, roll the music. Big shout out to my Patreon and my YouTube members, because without them, these videos wouldn't be possible. So if you'd like to support me so I can produce more and more of these in-depth videos showing tips and techniques, then please consider becoming a Patreon or a YouTube member. It doesn't cost much, as little as $1 a month, and that all adds up and gives me the funds I need so I can produce these sort of videos. And I really appreciate what those guys do every month. Plus we do a whole lot of stuff behind the scenes, chatting, and I share extra pictures and background stuff. And we also have competitions and surveys to see what kits I would do next, that sort of thing. You get much more input if you're a patron or a YouTube member. So please consider. Now, moving on to the deadeye that's going to be at the bottom that goes into the channel board. Same procedure again. We make the loop. We make sure we've drilled out the holes in our deadeye. We put the glue, not all over the top of the deadeye, Harry. Put the glue around the sides, okay? And then the loop goes through, and again we've picked the point of the triangle that's the bottom. It's like the mouth of the smiley face, okay, of the deadeye. And again, we need to seize that, but this time we've only got to seize it to the bottom. We're not going to run it all the way down. So we just basically tie that off, that little loop, right? We'll glue that in place. And then the only thing I do next is I'll run another loop on that just to hold it in place. That's it. That's all we need to do. Once it's dry, same procedure again. We trim away all the little loose pieces, and they can be fairly close this time. And we also select the shorter one, or the one that's a little bit offset, and we trim that off of the shroud. Now we have our two deadeyes rigged, one with the long line which is going to go up to the shrouds, right? It's the shroud line, okay, and one with a short line which is a dummy sort of tie down to the hull, which normally would be a chain or a strap. And we're going to put some channel cord in between them, okay? Strictly speaking, this is the channel, right? So how do we go about that? The trickiest part is getting them the right distance apart. Now, if you're building on the model, it's fairly easy. You rig your bottom deadeye onto that channel board, right, which you've got glued to your hull. You set it in place, tie it off with a chain or whatever. It's locked down there, okay? You drop your shroud in loosely down from the mast, and then using something like a paper clip, which you've worked out spacing, you click your paper clip into a hole in each of the deadeyes, and then you start running your channel thread through the other ones. Once you've got that spacing about right, you tighten up your shroud, right, keeping everything tense, and then pull out your paper clip, and then you run the last ones. That's the standard method. Forget that. Okay, so don't worry if you didn't follow that. That won't work here. It's, as I said, it's too hard. You're too close to the hull. The hull's there. You can't get your fingers in to do all that. You can't, it just won't work. At least I couldn't get it to work with my fumbling fingers. So what I needed to do was this. First, you've got to work out what's the distance apart. And so luckily I kept those pieces I'd cut off there. And when I measure the kit part, it's around 12, just a little bit over 12. Okay, now knowing that whatever jig that I make up off the model is going to tighten up when I pull everything tight once it's on the model. 12 is probably fine. They'll probably stretch to 12 and a half. So 12 is good. So what I did was I made myself a jig. All right. Now this jig has those holes 12 apart. And the idea being in that these guys click into that jig. Okay. One in there and one on this side. Okay, and then I can run my lines between them, and at the end of it I'll be able to pull it all out, and I'll show you how to do that in a sec. But how do you make the jig? Okay, how do you make the jig? Well, we know our distance apart. Okay, so we can basically, I've used a bit of scrap sprue. You could probably do this with a bit of wood. Wouldn't want to be very thick. You don't want to be probably more than 2 millimeters thick, because if you measure the deadeyes, these deadeyes, even though they're 4 millimeter deadeyes, they are 2.3 thick. So yeah, 2 millimeter thick spare sprue, or something sort of a piece of laminate, or anything that you've got. Now I have an assortment of drill bits in my toolbox, which I use for the wooden ships. So I need the number 4 one, because I'm using 4mm deadeyes, remember? So there it is. So then it was a simple matter of working out where the holes had to be. Now remember, the holes aren't 12mm apart. That's the total length from one side to one side. So you'll have to deduct one of the deadeyes to get the spacing, right? Because it'll be half into that deadeye, half into that deadeye. So you just take 4mm away from that. 4 from 12 is 8, okay? Following your math. And that'll give you your 2 points. They're 8mm apart. Punch those, do those, drill them through, okay? Easy as that. You could do it with a hand drill. I'm lazy. I've already got my Azito already set up, and it also is on low speed, soft everything, do not fuck the plastic up mode. Right. Now, once you've got the 2 holes done, okay, then what you need to do is you're going to be able to thread your thread through, but then you've got to be able to pull it off afterwards. So the idea is you've got to be able to cut a hole down the middle without losing your 2 circles. So what I've done is I cut a hole just about the same width as the space between, and took it down to just before the middle, right? So if you can see there, take a good look at that. You'll see I cut it just over the center, like if you're in the center line of those holes. Just after that, I've made my point. Okay, so the idea is that this fits in here, all right, and I can run the threads, and then what I do is I'll be able to lift that up and pull the threads through. So it tensions it, but it also can release it. That'll become obvious once I actually start to do this. So that's what I'm going to do now is I will thread this cordage, and remember that is half of the other one. So this is basically 3.5, probably less, right? Probably less, probably more like 0.3 millimeter. Now, this is tan color. Now, when you do your seizing here, a lot of people will do that in tan, that bit that runs around, okay? They'll do it in tan because they say it's a moving rope and all the rest of it. Yeah, but once it's on there, the shroud itself gets covered in tar, so it's dark, and they'll probably get splashed as well. So, a lot of us just do all that seizing in a tarred line, and a dark coloured line as well. But either way is correct. You could do that in the tan colour, but your shroud line is dark colour. Your rat lines aren't. Yes, your rat lines are like this. In fact, that gauge, your rat lines that go across, they're the lighter colour, okay? And the same here. Our channels between them will be light because they are pulleyed and moved and the rest of it. Okay, so the way to work it out is, does the line move? Will the line be pulled through a pulley? If so, it's going to be a tan colour. Is the line tied, rigged, held, and it never moves, right? Because shrouds don't move, they're fixed. If it's a fixed line, it's under tension, it's going to be tarred. Easy as that. All right, let's do it. Now I start by, again, fitting in the deadeyes. Now you make sure you pick the best side. This is the front side. All right, the side with the tape on that I'm holding things down with, that will be my front side, and that's the side that's going to be seen. So you pick the best triangle sort of ratios on that. Look, the nice smiliest deadeyes, right? And you line them up so that the triangles will be parallel, right? They've got to basically be the two that are in the middle there. They've got to be straight up and down. Everything's got to be parallel. Now cut off about, again, 20 centimeters of thread, a little bit of white glue on it to take any furries off the end so it's easy to thread, and it threads straight through. So basically do this with your hands. Now that one on the back here just gets pushed out the way and held with a bit of tape that I've got there. I found that was a good idea. One, it gives some tension. Two, it holds everything out the way so you don't foul. So again, dabbing a little bit of glue on there, just making sure that ends are going to be less furry. We pick again the point of the triangle, the hole on the other side. You know, you're always doing like for like on the front. They always must match. The lines must always be parallel. So there you go, those two are working. Now, over to the back, you just hold tension all the time. You select one of the holes that are vacant there. I'm going to go with that one on that side. Pull it through, okay, and then you find the corresponding hole to match for it. Because remember, you've got to have lines parallel and not crossing on the side that we see. So again, thread that through, and see the beauty of the little jig. It's holding it all in place. I've got plenty of, plenty of room to move around. See what I'm doing. It's easy to work with. So there you go. Those two are set. So keep the tension again. Now don't be too sort of pulley on the tension. You just need it firm without going too crazy. You've only got one hole left to put through, so that's the one we're going to use. So this is the third section here. That's going to go across to its matching hole in the other Deadeye. Right, it's all pretty easy, and it's so much fun doing it this way. So rather than trying to sort of do it any other way that I sort of tried with tiny little Deadeyes. And just remember, they need to be nice and parallel on the side you're going to see. The back side is where they cross over. So we don't want to see that. So be aware of that all the time. What's the front? What's the back? Now, we need to tie this off so that it doesn't unravel. And this is where we slide through that last bit of thread and loosen off the one that we had secured there with a bit of tape. And we're going to create a knot here. So using those pointy tweezers, we create a knot and we draw it down on the low side. Right, the side with the shortest piece, because that's going to be hidden. That'll be right against the channel board on the inside. No one's ever going to see it. So do that. If you do it on the top one, there's a chance it sort of might be ugly and be seen. Put a bit of glue on that, a little bit of white glue to stop that unraveling, and you only got to wait a little while for that to set. And once that second knot is nice and tight, then we can start unwrapping. So it's just a simple matter of pulling back the tape so that we can get those Deadeyes out. And they stayed in there nice and securely this whole time. So we just pop the Deadeye out, right, so it just flicks out, and work the thread through. So it sort of falls through. The whole thing starts falling apart once those Deadeyes are out of any tension in there. And there we go. Look at that. We made a bought one. Just need to clean that up once all the glue has set on the final bit there. And that looks spot on. Yep. The back of it, all twisted. The front of it, nice and straight. Always be aware of that. Now we'll thread that into the channel board. Should go in easily. There it is, goes in easily. And just remember to have the good side on the outside. That's got to match all those other ones, right? Good side, they're all parallel. The bad side, they cross over. So with that there, holding it in place, I'm going to use some slow zap, CO glue, and I'm going to lock it in. Now you say, why don't you use your white glue here? Well, I found the slow zap was better. It gave a much better bond because we are going to be pulling against this when we tie it up to the mask. So just make sure that's around the right way, get it all nice and tensioned correctly, and then we'll leave that to cure. Now we'll use a Revel contactor, which is going to give us a really good bond here. I wouldn't recommend Tamiya Thin because you need this to really weld into place. So fixing it there with the tabs, because I can't really smear a lot of glue around here. I'll ruin my paint job. So that goes in, locked in place, and we leave that to set. Once it is set, we need to put these little bottom pieces in. And really, I should have drilled all these holes before, but slacko me, I didn't, so I'm doing them now. So those holes go just sort of above that whale line there, and what you do is you bend what the waist is of that line and you just cut it to just longer than you need, because you can see where it's going to bend. That's why I left them long, because you just don't know exactly how long each one's going to be. And then it's just a matter of poking it in that hole there, sort of bending it to shape, trying to get it as straight as you can, because it's supposed to look like a bit of chain or a strap. There you go. Done. Now that we've got those shrouds secured at the bottom, it's time to tie them up top of the mast. I'm only going to sort of dry fit them for this. So we feed them through that little hole up in the crow's nest, which I showed you in the previous video. We use this thing called a big eye beading needle. They're really handy because you just kind of push your cordage into the middle of it, because there's a big hole in it, push it up to the end, it's really tight. That allows you to then pull it through, so no threading of tiny needles or anything, really easy to work with. And then once it's through, to release it, all you have to do is slide the cordage down to the middle of it, and it just falls out. It's so easy to use. And you can go through deadeyes, you can go through any part of your rigging, and they really help and assist you. All right, now that's in there, I slide it down to the bottom part where it'll be sort of a bit tighter, just the tension, and we are ready to finish. So there you have it. They're just friction fit for now because, yeah, you're supposed to do them in pairs so that you keep the mast perpendicular. So you do the front pair at the same time, tighten them both up till you've got a perfect triangle, everything's holding in place, and then you work your way through the rest. That way they'll all end up the same tension and all these little dead eyes will pull up. That's the best I can do now, just with one side, and you know, it's not really sort of, it's not quite correct, but you get the idea, okay? So that has got to be infinitely better than that, right? Well, that's the one for the midship, but you know, because we destroyed that one to make there. So that is sort of pretty ordinary, and remember it had a whole lot of flash on it, the one that I showed you. So the improvement is incredible, and they all basically line up, especially once the tension is correct, because you can get a bit more. So you can get a bit more tension out of those. They will tighten up a bit more. See? But they are basically the same distance apart, and that's the thing. You don't want them one up, one down, or all the rest of it. You want them all to look like they're in a run. And yeah, sure, the ones that are angled a bit more kind of droop down a little bit, but it's a consistent curve, so they all look straight. Okay. So you can see the purpose of this video, I have run one line over there just to try and give the thing a bit of tension, but it will all tense up, it'll look great, and then we'll put the rat lines across, which I've done before for the bounty, so it's pretty well the same method there, but I'll show it again. Anyhow, that sort of concludes the St. Louis series for a while. I will keep working on it, doing all the other deadlines, because they take a while. You know, it's pretty well a day's work to do that, so I've got another half a dozen of those to do. There's at least a week's work for me to do all that. I'll move on with a different subject next time. Something exciting, something submersible, something that you guys have all been waiting for. But for now, that is my method. Okay, it's not the only way, but that is my method for putting dead eyes on a very small plastic model to make it look good. All right, hope you enjoyed it. Okay, well, that's about all I've got to say. If you have enjoyed the video, please hit the like, comment, but just be respectful. Hit the subscription button so that you can basically see videos coming up. And look, if you really want to help me out, super thanks. Super thanks is always good. But that's about all I've got to say. So I'll leave you there and I'll see you next time. It's goodbye from Australia and it's hooroo from Harry Houdini.